On today's show, home sweet home. The Ottawa Senators return to the CTC for the first time since December 14th.
And they're taking on the Buffalo Sabres. We'll have a full game day preview.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today is Thursday, January 9th, and Pillsy, I have not been this excited for a home game for the Ottawa Senators in who knows how long, maybe even the home opener.
Yeah, Ross, is this home opener 2.0? It's kind of giving that vibes. Like you mentioned in the intro, the Ottawa Senators have not been at home at the CTC playing hockey since December 14th. We're looking at almost a full month away from their home barn. So it's great to be back home. Let's get Sens fans packing the CTC tonight. And I'm glad that it's the Buffalo Sabres that they're welcoming, because it's been a tough stretch of opponents, and not to downplay the Sabres. They already beat the Sens once here, but I feel like a broken record, Ross, saying it, but this is a winnable game, in my opinion. And if you're the Ottawa Senators, you've got to be looking at this as a bounce-back game after you were oh so close to getting the victory up against another division rival, losing in overtime to the Red Wings last game.
The Ottawa Senators are 5-1 in their last 6 home games, and the one loss, they dominated. They gave up 13 shots, or 12 even, and lost 4-2 to the New York Islanders. Other than that, they've got 5 straight wins at home, dating all the way back to November 25th when they beat the Calgary Flames. It's going to be a tough test, though. That first game back after a long road trip can be tough on teams, and I think if you're Ottawa, it's about getting the crowd completely up to what we expect it to be a puck drop 10 minutes into the game, right? If you give up an early goal, all of a sudden, you just pop the balloon right away. They've got to come out in the first 10 minutes and establish home ice and dominate the first period. That's going to be number one key to victory. Is there's going to be a buzz in the crowd, I feel like, tonight for a Thursday game in January against Buffalo. I do feel like it will be a good crowd, and they need to get into the game early.
Let's hope Lyndon Slewage is doing the anthem tonight, Ross, because that gets the people going.
Oh, it gets the people going. Now, for the Ottawa Senators, they have not won in their last 3 games. They're 0-2-1. They are 1-4-1 in their last 6 with a -9 goal differential. What adjustments would you like to see going into tonight?
Well, first off, Ross, just taking a look on Twitter, and it looks like Anton Forsberg is in the starters end for the morning skate, which I think is actually okay. Part of me was hoping it was going to be Levi Merilainen, but Forsberg, as we all know, played really well and was the reason they were able to get at least a point in that game. And Travis Green mentioned he wants to keep Forsberg in a rhythm. Now that we know that Linus Ullmark is out week to week, Forsberg will be the number one guy here, with Levy probably popping in back-to-backs. So let's hope that Anton Forsberg can replicate his performance up against the Red Wings in tonight's game up against the Buffalo Sabres. I want to see the penalty kill turn things up a notch here, Ross. We know that the Detroit Red Wings are one of the best power plays in the league, and they flex their muscles. I believe they went 2 for 3 up against the Senators, including overtime power play goal winner by Patrick Kane. The Buffalo Sabres do not have that kind of success on the man advantage. The Buffalo Sabres, their power play percentage is at 18.3, putting them 24th in the league. So you should be able to stop this team from really deciding who wins or loses the game based on the man advantage. So I need to see that penalty kill doing better. I'm sure, Ross, that they're probably sticking to that diamond formation, which we've had our gripes with it. I don't think it's been very successful, and there's some obvious weak points when you look at that bumper play working excellently for the Red Wings on Dylan Larkin's first goal. And then you look at how much success teams have had on the right side when the Senators are on the penalty kill. So I wouldn't mind if they tried switching it up, but if not, They got to get sticks in lanes. They got to be more aggressive. And I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more offensive opportunity on the penalty kill. I know Josh Norris had that breakaway. I forget which game that was, shorthanded, and he almost scored. But if we can catch the Sabres on their toes and generate a little offense on the penalty kill, I think that'll be huge for this team gaining momentum.
Agreed. And they're going to run back just about the same lines they did in the game in Detroit. The only difference, Jan Yannick was reassigned to the Belleville Senators, and Cole Reinhardt is expected to re-enter the lineup. Top line stays the same. Shane Pinto between Brady Tkachuk and Ridley Gregg. Tim Stützle between Claude Giroux and Drake Batherson. Josh Norris centering Nick Cousins and Adam Gaudette. And Zach Ostapchuk with Cole Reinhardt and Noah Gregor. On the back end, Thomas Chabot with Nick Jensen, Jake Sanderson with Artem Zub, Tyler Klevin with Nicholas Matin-Palo, and Pilsy mentioned Anton Forsberg right now is on the ice in the starters, and we expect him to get the call. Max Gannett still up with the team. He's the extra defenseman. And Pilsy, before I get your locked on player, a note on a happy site. 2 non-contact jerseys, sure, but Michael Amadio and David Perron on the ice at practice for the full morning skate.
Yeah, that's great to see. I mean, obviously, those guys don't really move the needle too much when you're talking about wins and losses, but there's 2 veteran players that come from having a lot of experience. Has Perron won a Stanley Cup? Yeah, with St. Louis. So both of them Stanley Cup winners. So you want those guys in your lineup, and hopefully when they do come back, Ross, they can boost some offense in that bottom 6, because now that Adam Gaudette has kind of turned back into a pumpkin here, he hasn't done much. I'm pretty sure he's pointless since the Seattle game, which is a long time ago. And the other guys just haven't been able to get it going. So you hope that once Amadio comes back, that him and Cousins actually had some good chemistry. They kind of helped out on each other's goals a bunch when they were clicking on that third line. So it'd be nice to get Michael Amadio back. I assume he's going to be back sooner than David Perron. So any reinforcements that can come to this team are more than welcomed.
I can't wait to see David Perron back. I know it's going to be tough for him to get up to speed after missing so much time, but a veteran like him who doesn't rely on speed either. It's not like that's his entire game. It's about grinding down low, hounding pucks, extending offensive zone time, and making sharp plays. I think that his re-entry into the lineup could solve a big problem for the Ottawa Senators. Like, no disrespect to Adam Gaudette, who's gone ice cold offensively, but if you have Perron there on the third line in Gaudette's spot, all of a sudden you've now got 3 lines that could theoretically produce offense. And I just don't think it's getting done right now. I'd love to see Adam Gaudette have a big game tonight. I think that it's long overdue for him. You don't expect him to keep up that pace that he was on at one point, only behind Alex Ovechkin in goals per 60 minutes of ice time, but no goals now in 12 or 13 games. It's just not going to cut it for a guy.
No points even, Ross, I think, in that stretch.
Well, let's get him on the score sheet tonight. Not my locked on player, though. I'll start with yours. Who are you going to be watching for tonight?
All right. Well, if you're watching on YouTube, our player highlighted is number 18 with the picture here, Tim Stützle. I'm going to be locked on to Tim Stützle. The flu is well behind him. He's got great line mates in Giroux and Batherson. There's no reason why Tim Stützle can't have a big night offensively, in my opinion, tonight. And I always like to watch Ross. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to ask Tim Stützle about this, but anytime he's going up against fellow Germans on the opposition, especially we know him and JJ Peterka are buddies playing in World Juniors together. I like to see him pop off. I guess I could have said the same up against Detroit with Maurice Seider.
He had his best game in a while. He was shooting the puck. He went 3 straight games without a shot before that. So you knew that it was a little bit better. Now, would he have liked to finish on the slot opportunity in the third period in a tie game? Yeah, you would have. But I think that we know Timmy, effort is never the issue. He's very hard on himself, the classic German perfection, trying to be the best he can be. And I just think tonight's going to be a good night for him. I'm happy that you took Tim Stützle. And I would like to see him score a goal.
Yeah, let's see a goal. I'm down for that, Ross. And on the let's get a power play goal here for Tim Stützle.
Well, his last goal was on the power play in Winnipeg. He hasn't scored an even strength goal since Seattle. That breakaway, the first game of the road trip. So that's 8 straight games without an even strength goal for Tim Stützle. I'd like to see that figure itself out. And dude, he's got 2 goals overall since the loss in LA, dude. Like this is starting to get to be a trend that I'm not really hoping continues. 4 shots on goal though in the game against the Detroit Red Wings. So let's hope that he's back to his super self. My locked on player to watch is going to be probably the hottest player on the team right now. Thomas Chabot has been playing excellent hockey. Sens Central standout last game, got the unbelievable goal that got the monkey off the Sens back, 144 minutes without a goal. He actually had scored in the St. Louis game, but it was called back on offside. So I'm going to give him an unofficial 2-game goal streak right now for Thomas Chabot, but I just love the way he's playing. Nick Jensen bounced back after an awful game in St. Louis as well. I feel like Shabby at home here, he could be a difference maker. We know that Buffalo's got all sorts of left shot defensemen themselves, but I think if he's the best left shot defenseman on the ice tonight, the Sens are in good shape. So I'll go with Thomas Chabot as my locked on player to watch.
I like that. Yeah. And it seems like Jensen is on the right side of the flu as well. So him and Thomas Chabot, they should have a good night as well. And I think, Ross, we talked about the offensive woes when it comes to the bottom 6 not scoring. If the defense can chip in offensively, I think that really helps kind of balance things out. So yeah, let's see Thomas Chabot do his thing.
All right, it's a 7:00 puck drop tonight. The Ottawa Senators hosting the Buffalo Sabres. We got a pair of tickets to give away thanks to Sens Central citizen Nick Spence. Stay tuned for that on Twitter at Sens Central a little later on today. The GLEBE Central Pub also running for tonight's game, so you can get your tickets, GLEBECentralPub.com, and click on the Sens Shuttle. On the other side, we'll look at the Sens' top point scorers over the course of the road trip, and we'll dive in to the Buffalo Sabres expected lineup tonight. And by the way, the Sabres 4-2-1 in their last 7 games following a 13-game losing streak. So are the Sens catching the Sabres at an inopportune time? Those conversations are next, and we'll wrap up today's show. It's a busy night in the National Hockey League. Who are Sens fans cheering for as the Eastern Conference wildcard race is just out of control? That's coming up. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Gametime. I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, or comedy. Anytime you can get in on the action and be there in person, you can create great memories and have massive moments happen right before your eyes. And Gametime has made it even easier to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature, Gametime Picks. This filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Like we mentioned, the Ottawa Senators are finally back at the CTC. And Ross, I'm on the Gametime app right now. There's tickets available. You can get into the building. I'm looking at tickets for $16, $17. You can get tickets in the 100s for less than $100. Like, get this building packed, guys. And if you want to go to the game tonight, use the GLEBE Central Pub shuttle and get your tickets on Gametime. And make sure when you're on the Gametime app, use the all-in pricing feature so that you can see the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time.
All right, Phil Z. So it's a game day for the Ottawa Senators hosting the Buffalo Sabres. After a 9-game road trip, the Sens are coming home for a while, right? Right? No. The Senators will be back out on the road after tonight, taking on the Penguins in Pittsburgh on Saturday, 7 o'clock. Then they'll come back home for the second half of a back-to-back Sunday against Dallas at 5. Then they'll go back out on the road to play the Islanders on Tuesday. And then they're back home on Thursday. So a little ping-pong home away over the course of the next week for the Ottawa Senators. Don't get me started on the schedule makers, or we will get to the end of the show quicker than we would like. But Pilsy, tonight's game against Buffalo signals the first home game since December 14th. So I figured it's a good time to look back at some of the top performers of this road trip. Brady Tkachuk with 6 points in 9 games led the way offensively for the Ottawa Senators. And then it was actually a tie with Jake Sanderson with 6 points in 9 games. Ridley Gregg had 5 points. He led all players with goals with 4. On the other side of it, Josh Norris, 9 games, 2 goals, no assists. That to me needs to improve as the Senators get home. Need 9 to be on his game if the Senators are going to have success.
Yeah, now, Ross, it is important to note with that, Josh Norris had been demoted in the lineup. I'm not sure, maybe our stats department can see if his ice time had been affected overall, because still, obviously, he's on the top power play unit. And then when you switch from having line mates like Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, to Nick Cousins and Adam Gaudette, that's probably going to affect your ability to produce offensively. No offense to those guys, but I would like to see more from Josh Norris, obviously, and I think he was put on that third line for a reason. Travis Green wanted to elevate Shane Pinto and Ridley Gregg, and that line of Brady Tkachuk, Shane Pinto, and Ridley Gregg has been looking good, in my opinion. So hopefully Josh Norris can find different ways to produce, and we all know what he can do on the power play if he uses that shot.
3 games in January, no points, -4. 4 shots on goal, averaging more ice time than any month previously. 19 minutes on 11 seconds, 18:45 in December, 18:55 in November, 18:47 in October. But for Josh Norris, it's about shooting the puck. That to me is the number one thing. 4 shots in 3 games for Josh Norris. Those are rookie numbers. Let's pump those numbers up. Hey, we're doing it because we believe in him. We know that he's a shooter. And he can put the puck in the net. Many people are saying he was put on earth to put the puck in the net. 2 goals, same amount of points on the road trip as Travis Hamonic. Same amount of points on the road trip as Michael Amadio, who played 3 out of 9 games. That's not going to cut it for a guy making a shade under $8 million per season. So that's who I'd like to see perform tonight. Here's who they're performing against: the Ottawa Senators, taking on a Buffalo Sabres team that at practice yesterday was pumping AC/DC while working the power play, getting ready for that raucous atmosphere tonight at the CTC. We expect their lines to look as follows: Dylan Cousins centering Jason Zucker and Tage Thompson at right wing. So that's Cousins, Zucker, and Thompson. Second line, Ryan McLeod with JJ Peterka and Alex Tuck. Peyton Krebs is between Zach Benson and Jack Quinn. And then on the fourth line, Kozak, just called up from Rochester, is centering Sam Lafferty and Nicolas Aube-Kubel. On the back end, Rasmus Dahlin with Bowen Byram, Owen Power with Connor Clifton, Matthias Samuelsson is with Henry Jokiharju, and still no word on starting goalie. We expect it to be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. James Reimer is their other goalie, and James Reimer is awful this season. 1-5-1. You might remember the last time he played the Ottawa Senators, he ducked out of the way of a Tim Stützle home run swing a la Jose Bautista.
Old strategy.
But my goodness, in his career against the Ottawa Senators, James Reimer is 17-6-4 with a .924 save percentage. Just worth noting there. Kind of a strange stat for a guy who's never been an elite goalie in the league. I'll take my chances with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen in this one, Pilsy. But again, Ottawa already lost 5-1 to Buffalo earlier on this season. They need to figure it out because you can't be giving up points at the bottom of your own division like that.
Yeah, you simply cannot be doing that, Ross. I agree. My lookout player is, again, the player we have profiled here if you're watching on YouTube, number 17, Jason Zucker. He's kind of bounced around a little bit later on in his career, especially the last years. In Buffalo now, it was in Nashville after the deadline, Arizona, and then he spent some time in Pittsburgh. But he has figured it out in Buffalo, Ross, and this is looking like a great signing for them. They just signed him to a 1-year, $5 million deal, but in 41 games, he has 31 points, good for second on the team in points for the Sabres, only 3 points behind Tage Thompson, and he's been hot lately. No points in their 4-3 shootout win up against the Capitals last game, but before that, in 4 games. He had 8 points in 4 games, including a hat trick up against the Colorado Avalanche. And I think it's kind of people have forgotten since his Minnesota days. I mean, he had some success in Pittsburgh, but this is a guy that can put up 25 goals. And right now he's projected to hit 30 for the second time in his career. And he plays with a bit of a physical edge as well. So him on that top line in Buffalo with Cousins and Thompson, that's a line that actually can do some big damage if they're clicking on any given night. So I'm going to be looking out for number 17, Jason Zucker. And Ross, he also leads the Sabres with 8 power play goals.
Wow, and that's a power play that does have a ton of weapons. They haven't necessarily always looked the part this year, but when they're on, I mean, that one-timer from Tage Thompson in itself is a huge weapon, and it can open up other things for that team. But on the season, they're 24th in the National Hockey League in power play percentage at 18.3%. Recently, though, 7 for their last 16. So just like Detroit, red hot over the last little stretch. So stay out of the box. Remember, they took some undisciplined penalties early on in the game against Buffalo last time. Didn't Brady get an instigator for a fight against Jordan Greenway? Did I think that right?
I think there was a penalty like that, and we weren't too happy. But just quickly before you do your lookout player, though, Ross, I wanted to mention you talk about that slap shot from Tage Thompson.
He did, by the way. 6 minutes into the game, Brady got an unsportsmanlike, and they scored on the power play.
Jeez. Apparently, Tage Thompson was moved to the wing. I'm reading the Sabres game day preview article here, and Lindy Ruff said he's dealing with something. So that's why he's playing on the wing. I'm not sure what that means. But you talk about that one-timer he has, Ross. He scored a one-timer in the game up against Washington, and it was 103.7 miles per hour, the hardest shot goal in the NHL this season. So
wow.
You talk about a guy that can really use his frame to get a lot on a puck if you tee him up and it's in the sweet spot for him. 103.7 miles per hour. That's pretty difficult to stop. So, yeah, look out for that one.
Unless it's high glove, then Anton Forsberg's going to get every single one of them. That guy's glove's outstanding. Hopefully the rest of his game is as good as it was against Detroit as well. For Buffalo tonight, I'm looking out for Rasmus Dahlin, the first overall pick in Brady Tkachuk's draft class. For me, Dahlin has always been a minute-eating defenseman, plays with a lot of edge, too. I don't know if he gets as much credit as he deserves for how tough and strong he is in front of his own net, but he's dancing offensively right now. During the Sabres 4-2-1 run, he's got a team-leading 10 assists in his 7 games. No goals, but still 10 points to lead the team, and he's only taken 1 minor penalty as well. So if I'm Ottawa, I'd try to goat him into getting a little, undisciplined, try to get him in the box because he is an all-situation stud for them. Their team leader in time on ice on average with 24 minutes and 12 seconds, and he's got 6 of those 10 points are coming at even strength, 4 on the power play. I just think that he's an absolute stud, and they got to be aware every time he's on the ice. On the flip side of that, Owen Power has really struggled for the Buffalo Sabres over the last 7 games during this win streak, Pilsy. Power's a -5 with no points. Like, this is one where if you can go 50-50 against the Dahlin pair with Bowen Byram, you can eat against the pair of Owen Power and Connor Clifton. So that's going to be my key to victory tonight. Other than a hot start, is take advantage of the depth issues on the Sabres back end.
Yeah, I mean, that top pair of Dahlin and Byram, like you're looking at a first overall pick with the 4th overall pick. Like that's, you got a lot of talent there.
Thank goodness Ottawa deferred, or not deferred, took Brady Tkachuk and deferred the 2019 pick and said, you guys can have next year whoever's 4th overall. We're taking Brady Tkachuk 4th overall in the 2018 draft. For the record, we were always on that side.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Ross, I was working at SportsCenter when that was going on, and Craig Button did a hit mentioning that he thinks the Senators had to defer and take the pick next year. And I was about to run up onto the stage and unplug the camera and be like, we cannot be putting this on live television. But as an intern, I decided that would not be a good move for my career.
Good job security, eh?
Yeah.
There you go. So that's the Buffalo Sabres tonight. It is a 7 o'clock puck drop. And as we mentioned, as always, it is the postcast. It'll be me and Jack Richardson taking you through the highs and lows of tonight's game following this divisional matchup. The Senators went from having 2 divisional games in about a month and a half to back-to-back games against the division. They're 0-1. They got to get a win tonight. Can they do it? Let us know in the comments what you think the outcome of tonight's game will be. And on the other side, we'll look at the other games in the National Hockey League and what we can expect and who we're cheering for as Ottawa Senators fans. That's next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. You gotta love that. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Another quick reminder for people that haven't done it yet, check out the no-brainer boost. Bills to complete 1+ pass was minus 10,000, now minus 110. So it's a no-brainer to get on that. And Ross, since we're talking about an Ottawa Senators game day on FanDuel.com right now, the Ottawa Senators money line is at minus 162 and the over-under is set at 5.5. So you want to get in on the action on tonight's game, do it with North America's #1 sportsbook. Just visit FanDuel.com today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this NFL playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
All right, Pilsy. So, big one tonight in our nation's capital. Pack the building and let's get a real home ice advantage. Those beautiful black 2D jerseys skating around the ice, and let's go Ottawa on this big, I'm calling it a big game. Your first game back. The fans have been patiently waiting. The fans in Ottawa have had to deal with the garbage performance of Team Canada at the World Juniors. Let's get some real quality hockey. And I don't mean taking shots from the outside. I don't mean sitting your best players, not even bringing them. I'm talking about getting Tim Stützle on the board. How about a goal from Drake Batherson? That'd be nice. I thought he had a few good looks, against Detroit, but he's all of a sudden gone cold. No points in his last 3 games. Would love to see him get on the score sheet. One note on Drake Batherson, though. He did have a team-high 6 hits in the game against Detroit. So he's getting that B game we always talk about. If you're not scoring, how are you going to impact the game to help get your team some momentum or offensive zone time? Puck possession, I should say. Billsy, key to victory tonight.
Ross, before I do my key to victory, now that we finally have a home game to talk about, how would you match up the Sens lines up against the Sabres? Like that top line I mentioned of Zucker, Cousins, and Thompson. Who do you want going up against them?
I think I'll go with the Sanderson and Zub pair for them.
No, sorry, the forwards though. Like which forward line are you putting up against them? I think you want Brady up against Thompson, right?
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but you're gonna go. You're gonna have to go with. Yeah, probably.
Because you want to match that physicality, right? Like I mentioned too, Zucker is a guy that gets a decent amount of hits as well. So I think putting Giroux, Timmy, and Batherson up against them, that might be a mismatch that doesn't work in your favor.
I think my bigger question, or if I'm Travis Green, my bigger objective is to get Tim Stützle out against the Sabres' third line.
Yeah.
As much as possible. They're undersized. They're all under 25 years old. I think they're all under 23 even, with Peyton Krebs, Zach Benson, and Jack Quinn. Look, a lot of offensive upside from that line. But if I'm Ottawa, that's a matchup that Tim Stützle should eat every single matchup.
Yep, I'm with you. And that's kind of where I was going to go with my key to victory is finally that you're home, use the matchup opportunity to your advantage. And that was where I was going to go, Ross. So great point there is get Tim Stützle matched up against that young, inexperienced third line, especially with Claude Giroux and Drake Batherson there. I think they could do some damage if you take advantage of that.
big note on tonight's game. According to the morning skate, they're all wearing their white helmets. Are they going to wear white jerseys at home after all they've been? Did they lose their black jerseys?
Man, and if this means that the Sabres are wearing their black and red goat head jerseys, I don't like that. Those, in my opinion, are some of the best jerseys. That's when I became a hockey fan, is when the Sabres and Dominic Hasek were donning those jerseys. And I don't like, you cannot come home and not wear your home jerseys after a 9-game road trip. That would be a wild move, in my opinion, because I believe, Ross, it's up to the home team to consent to the away team. Hey, if you want to wear those, we'll allow it.
Usually the helmets they wear at the morning skate are indicative of the uniforms that they will wear that night. So something very important to be paying attention to in tonight's game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've got a white Brady Tkachuk jersey hanging up here. I like the whites, but wearing white after a 9-game road trip would just be a wild move. And you can't allow a team to come into your building and give them the respect of letting them pick what jersey they wear. I would have been like, nope, no chance. This is our barn. We decide what jerseys we're wearing. You wear whatever jersey you want to wear, but we're picking our home blacks. So that makes this is a rational, Ross, and a rational sports fan take, but that makes me not feel good.
Very nervous about the color of the jerseys tonight.
God.
Let's let you know what jerseys you're going to be cheering for elsewhere in the National Hockey League. An all-divisional matchup between the Boston Bruins and the Tampa Bay Lightning. We quickly discussed this yesterday. I'm all in on the Lightning because I just figure they're going to make the playoffs either way. The Bruins have lost 5 in a row, so I'm all about just knocking the Bruins down as many pegs as possible.
Yeah, I like that, Ross, and that's going to be a good matchup. And apparently that is the matchup of the outdoor game next year. They're going to play an outdoor game at, I believe it's called Raymond James Stadium, where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers play, the NFL team, and it's going to be Lightning up against Bruins. So that'll be interesting. A little ridiculous that, well, it's not surprising, Ross, that Gary Bettman's going so hard for these outdoor games down south. That's not what hockey is about, especially the outdoor aspect of it. Everybody thinks about playing on the pond as a kid, but he's really pushing for these outdoor games in Florida and in southern areas, which is, I guess, you're trying to pump and grow the game there, and a lot of good teams are down there thanks to tax purposes and nice weather. How are you? There's no palm trees and tax-free states in Buffalo, as their GM famously said, but yeah, that'll be a good game to start to get off track there.
No, it's good. And that's the only all Eastern Conference matchup that we're worried or watching tonight. Everything else is East versus West. So it's very clear. Senators fans, you're rooting for the Dallas Stars over the Philadelphia Flyers. You're rooting for the Edmonton Oilers over the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh, yeah.
And you're rooting for the Seattle Kraken over the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then later tonight, it's not as much of a, matchup that matters right now, but the New York Islanders are in Vegas to take on the Golden Knights, the hottest team in the league.
West Coast, best coast, Ross. Let's go Western teams.
Yeah, I have 2 favorite teams, the Ottawa Senators and whoever's playing the Eastern Conference out west. Those are easily the teams to cheer for if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, and those are some good Western Conference teams. Maybe Seattle against Columbus. You're hoping that Seattle can get back on track. They're way below 500, 17, 21, and 3. But you got Edmonton and Dallas, 2 very good teams, and then Vegas as the other ones taking on Eastern Conference teams.
And Ross, every one of those Western teams, the odds by FanDuel, number 1 sportsbook in North America, all of those Western Conference teams are favorites on the betting lines up against the Eastern Conference teams. So if things go the way we hope and the way Vegas hopes, especially the Golden Knights, we should have a good out-of-town scoreboard tonight.
All right, Pillsy, before tonight's game, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts for me is, Ross, another offensively talented player hit the waiver wire yesterday. The Seattle Kraken put Daniel Sprong on waivers. This is an interesting one because, look, this guy put up 40 points in back-to-back years with Seattle. In 2022-23, 46 points in 66 games, 21 goals. And then in Detroit last year, 43 points in 76 games. This year, it's not clicking for him, though. The Vancouver Canucks signed him, and he only had 3 points in 9 games. And then Seattle thought, hey, maybe we'll pick him back up and things will work again. And he only had 2 points in 10 games. So 5 points in 19 games. I think this is one maybe you stay away from, though. From reading the comments on Twitter, fans of teams that he's been on have really mentioned that he's a defensive liability, strictly an offensive guy. And apparently there's some off-ice issues as well that may not make him a guy that you want to bring into your locker room, which when you've been bouncing around like he has the last couple of years, you start to realize maybe why that's been the case. So for me, I was all in on Arthur Kaliev, but maybe step back from the Sens claiming Daniel Sprong.
Yeah, I'll take a pass on this one too. Only 2 goals in 19 games this year as well, 5 points, but it's the 6 teams over the course of his 9-year career.
Exactly.
That really makes me nervous, so we'll stay away from that. My final thoughts are congratulations to Jeremy Davies of the Belleville Senators being named to the AHL All-Star Game. Last year was Angus Crookshank that represented the Sens. Max Canet was also named but could not attend due to injury. But congratulations to Jeremy Davies, a well-deserved honor for him being able to represent Belleville and the Bay of Quinte. That's it for us today. Thank you so much for watching, listening, and engaging with the show. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.